What's up, guys? And again, today another reaction to, and this time we'll be reacting to Black Ops 2 Buried World Record History, the 10-year mystery of the unbeatable era. Now, this, I don't know what it is referring to. The 10-year mystery of the unbeatable era. I don't know. Um, I don't know much about the Buried World Record history. I know so little of it that can't really. I'm not even gonna say anything about it. So we're just gonna be reacting over here. Wonderful. I'll just like and subscribe, but you guys go do that as well. I'll leave the link in the description below. Go support them. And yeah, without further ado, let's get right into the video.
Black Ops 2 Buried. Arguably one of the most iconic maps in Call of Duty Zombies from back in the game's
I love this map.
Age.
Love this so much.
You probably remember playing at least a few matches of this map back in the day, either camping on top of the bank or by Jug with your friends, and using as many buildable traps as possible. Or trying to complete the Easter egg and figure out who on your team was
4 hours.
That one target in the shooting gallery step. You also probably remember this map being easy, really easy. What with the infinite ammo paralyzer, the brand new ray gun Mark II with its headshot damage multiplier.
It was easy, but it was still hard for me to get to pretty high round.
So how did Buried become one of the most competitive maps on Black Ops 2 for the world record, with one of the most unbeatable records in all of Zombies? How did players fight their way past impossible escapes, game-breaking bugs, and mysterious script errors? In preparation for Buried's 10th anniversary this year, I'm going to take you through the last decade of world records on this map to show how the map and its place in Zombies has changed since the days of Black Ops 2.
Yeah, it really has changed. Not many people are going for world records, especially since round-based zombies has basically not been in Call of Duty for like the past at least 3 years. I think Cold War was the last Call of Duty to have round-based zombies. Vanguard didn't have that, and if it, I think it did, but it wasn't traditional. Bro, this map is so fucking good.
This is something we've never done before. We've taken that little
Jimmy Valinsky, his last map.
Buried was released on July 2nd, 2013, as the third DLC for Black Ops 2. It introduced several new, never-before-seen elements into the game,
now that we know his name is Arthur.
The first ally NPC in Zombies.
Yeah.
The Witches, the first special zombie type which were activated by an area as opposed to a round. A new burst fire variation of the ray gun, the Mark II. A save-state tactical grenade in the Time Bomb. An infinite damage wonder weapon that gave new mobility tactics in the Paralyzer.
You don't have to buy doors, you can just go around them.
Resonator. Furthermore, it was the first Zombies map that seemed to heavily encourage camping as opposed to training the zombies in hordes and killing them. Players figured this out very quickly, as a day after the map came out, strategy guides were being uploaded featuring players sitting in the Jug hallway and paralyzing the zombies to death. A few days later, players
probably was patched. I know that was a very easy strategy.
Devised a strategy involving the subsurface resonator.
Okay, so yeah, that was a very well-known strategy. Even I knew about that and I tried it, but it was at the point where everything had already been patched. So the resurface whatever it's called, that gun was actually very useful for high rounds, but Treyarch noticed it and they patched it to where it cooled down a lot slower, so you couldn't do that strategy anymore. You could, but it was going to be a lot harder. You would have to be more I guess I don't know how to say that. How would you describe it? You wouldn't use the gun as much as you would want to, because if you heat it up too much, it would need to cool down, and it would take longer to cool down, which then would make the strategy not work, because you'd be in a corner and you're waiting for it to cool down. You'll be overwhelmed. So yeah, that was a good strategy. I think it only took like a few weeks for it to be patched. I'm not sure. Hopefully he explains it, because I know I'm not explaining it that well. But yes, when I tried to do that, it was already patched. So yeah.
A buildable automatic thundergun trap powered by the turbine buildable.
That strategy is still useful to this day, actually.
They could easily fly up and replace resonators before the zombies made it close enough to trap them by Jug. The only hard part was that after a certain amount of time, the turbine would start turning itself off and back on, or stuttering,
Mhm.
indicating that it was losing power. But if players paid close enough attention, they could break the turbine and replace it before this happened. This strategy proved extremely effective, as it was
They actually
fast,
have it to where, like,
low
I think it's
effort,
only
and
like
forgiving when it
eight
came to mistakes.
8 shots, 7 shots, or
Animation
some kind of
errors that
shots.
occurred a few hours into games
Oh yeah.
held players back from making it very far, at first. The
Wait,
first
nobody made it to
documented
100
round
before the
100
error?
on Buried
Wow. Okay.
was uploaded by Middle Eastern player KSA Smile on July 11th, a rather long 9 days after the map was released. Unfortunately, the only existing gameplay is a clip of him on the round changeover, but we can assume he also used the Jug Hallway strategy, especially considering his points are relatively low, and the Resonator doesn't give points.
Yep.
In the first month of Buried's release, the Paralyzer could kill at any round with just a few seconds of shooting, which is why you can see KSA Smile vaporizing the last horde of
Yep.
99. This would be beaten only a few days later on
Just
July
a few-
14th
Dang.
by Scotty I3, utilizing the strategy that he and his brother
Scotty,
had
I know that name.
popularized. Scotty managed to play flawless for 20 hours to round 124
Dang.
before getting trapped
Wait,
by a zombie
flawless?
while trying to get a new Resonator.
Oh, that sucks,
The
bro.
game went pretty south when he tried to get Quick Revive back.
Yeah, I would assume so. You would get overwhelmed by all those zombies.
But 2 days later, a
Yeah.
player named Perk Bottled would show up to absolutely destroy this record, getting all the way to 158 before his
Oh,
Xbox
shit.
froze after 35 hours of gameplay. It's unclear what exactly allowed these
Yeah, this is
players
all
to
when
avoid
people
the
were still playing on
animation error for
consoles,
so
not on
long,
PC.
but post-release hotfixes and less use of the Paralyzer animations could definitely have played a role. Perk Bottled's intimidating record would last until the end of the month, for one because it was beaten, but also because the map was majorly patched. Around August 1st, a YouTuber named the Zombie Project would start a game that would eventually reach round 162. However, he played this game on local mode, meaning that his Xbox didn't immediately update when the map received a game-changing patch on August 1st. With
Okay,
the
okay.
patch, the Paralyzer was greatly nerfed.
Yeah, there you
turning
go.
From an
It was nerfed.
infinitely killing weapon to having a steep damage drop-off by round 70.
We tested it out, and at round 70, it was 1.5 full petrifiers to kill one zombie. We did it again at round 80, it was 3.5 full petrifiers to do it. 87, it was 12. At 92, we did it 21 times, and the zombie just respawned.
Now players had to fully rely on the buildable traps
Yeah.
to kill zombies in the high rounds.
I told you. They nerfed
This
the
rendered
hell out of
all
this
high-round
Wonder
games
Weapon.
played before August 1st obsolete, and the leaderboards were completely wiped.
Yep.
The community had to start the records from round 1 again. At the same time, the PS3 and PC versions of the DLC were released, so PS3 players took a crack at the record instead. On August 2nd, a French player named WLR51
Wow, in 1 month,
would reach
already
round
4 or 5 records
115,
were beaten.
becoming the first
Shit.
post-patch game to reach the iconic Zombies round. He died after trying to narrowly escape the Jug Hallway when his buildables broke. A week later, on August 9th, this record would be beaten back on Xbox by Intuit Scott, who reached round 152, and again 2 days later by SimStep, who reached round 155, nearly bringing the record all the way back up to what it had been before the patch.
Oh, okay.
Scott's game ended in a new error. The animation error
Scotty
so
back at it
common in
again.
the first week or so had been fixed by Treyarch, but this script
Oh.
error had shown up in its place. This error would become much more common and important than anyone could have realized at the time, but not till years later. Scott played the safest way possible with the turbine built in the saloon, as opposed to where most players built it in the courthouse. This was due to the saloon being a much more open and trainable area, whereas the courthouse was cramped, the workbench was in an awkward place, and respawning.
It's kind of weird
zombies
though,
could
because
quickly
that's usually
trap
where
it
people
down a
put it
flight.
now. Like that's
However,
usually the
getting
best
turbines
place
back
to
from
put it
the
right now.
saloon was a much slower process.
Yeah,
as
it's
you would
because
have
it
to
was
run
so
across
slow
the
that people
entire
started
map.
going back to the
Simstep played
original
the same
place.
meta strategy, but quit on 155 out of boredom once he had the record.
Bro, imagine just quitting zombies because you're bored, not because you literally went down.
This was a pretty good indicator of how buried high rounds were regarded at the time, and why the series of records would grind to a screeching halt. Simstep's world record would stand through the end of August, through the end of 2013, all the way through 2014, into 2015 before it would even be challenged.
Dang, so
Why?
he kept it for years.
Because buried was boring.
It was.
The strategy
It's
was
not
boring.
boring. Yeah, it
It
is
wasn't
a
fun
little
to
bit.
play,
The
it
map is
wasn't
fun though.
engaging. A good amount of the community thought it was so easy and exploitative of the
It is
map
easy.
elements
It is
that
very
it
easy.
should be
That's what makes it a
considered
little bit fun
glitch.
for me.
But it was by far the best strategy on the map, and it was the strategy that all the previous records had been played with, so trying anything else wasn't really worth it.
You can only do one thing, and that's traps.
No, I'm not
Or,
really a
not
big
traps.
fan. I kind of wish they went into a different direction, more like Black Ops 1 style maps, where there was multiple strategies you could use on the maps. Even 2 years later, after playing that map, we were still finding strategies. But on Black Ops 2, we are limited to the strategies we can use to get to high rounds.
Yeah,
And
you
with
are
more
only limited to
exciting
that
maps like
one
Mob of the
place.
Dead
Like
and
that's what you're only
Origins
seeing.
book ending Buried's release, Buried would become a ghost town
Oh yeah,
for nearly 2 years.
yeah. Mob of the Dead. Oh man. Okay, so speaking of that, Mob of the Dead, I want to react to that too, but I'm only gonna do it after I'm done with, like, I guess Victus. So we're gonna go back. We're gonna watch all of them, or as many as there are
On April
available, because not
25th,
every single map is available.
2015, An Australian player named Zek Spooney would play a game on PC that would finally pass Simstep's record. However, when Spooney reached around 159, he discovered something very strange. The resonator wasn't working.
Oh no.
All of a sudden, it no longer killed the zombies. They just ran right through it. So, although Spooney had used the classic jug hallway strategy all the way to world record, he had to leave on 159 to avoid getting overrun. Why did this happen? Well, the PC port of Black Ops 2, available on Steam, was horribly unoptimized. Not only did it not have a local mode for players to play on to avoid getting disconnected if their internet dropped or Steam servers reset, but the trap damage was coded differently on PC. And starting on round 159, the zombies' health was higher than the damage the traps did. Therefore, past this round on PC, players literally had no way to kill the zombies. Spooney tried to use an alternate last-minute strategy with the
the
trample
trample?
steam, another
Does
buildable
it?
trap in the courthouse, but this only caused the zombies to behave even more strangely, ragdolling
Wow.
infinitely without actually being killed, and he died.
Okay,
not
that
far
I
into
don't
the
know. That
round.
shit looks. That's insane. And kind of scary too.
It's
Kind of
worth
creepy
noting
looking.
that, since Simstep's record, a small change had been made to the strategy. While most players had used the time bomb in their tactical grenade slot in 2013, now players had mostly transitioned
Time
to
bomb.
using monkey bombs instead. While this might not seem like a huge optimization, it was much more efficient. While time bombs could whisk a player out of being trapped almost instantly, using them slowed down gameplay a lot, as the player would have to replay whatever chunk of the game they had just reverted by going back in time. Plus, the player would have to recycle the time bomb and get a new one every few rounds. Monkey bombs were less reliable and had to be used proactively, but the time and headache they saved made games faster and made not downing and playing well more critical. Additionally, it was later discovered that using the time bomb too many times in a game will give you an error anyway. Meanwhile, back on Xbox, a new buried player was quietly rising through the ranks,
Here we go.
sneaking
Here we
up on
go.
the record.
Yep.
By the time Spooney achieved
The
the
one
record,
person that
a
comes out
relatively
from the
unknown
shadows.
player named Cyberdyne Gaming already had a 125 death and a 146 disconnect to his name, and he
Damn.
wasn't going to stop there. On May 16th, 2015, less than a month after Spooney reached the limit of the record on PC, Cyber would achieve round 173 on console. His game ended in a death after his turbine stuttered and multiple monkey bombs failed on him. But through his experience on the map, Cyber had learned a crucial lesson about buried high rounds. Buried was a test of endurance.
He just fuck it.
One
He's
small
just like
mistake of
he's
being
not gonna
prepared for
risk
the
it.
turbine or
He's just gonna
resonator to
waste
break
time.
could
He's
result
just
in a
wasting time,
game-ending
basically.
double down at any point.
Oh yeah, the
Armed with this
buildable isn't
information
killing
and the
anything.
skill honed from his past games, Cyber set out to beat his own record. A month later, on June 13th, he did, pushing the record another 10 rounds to 183.
wait, did they
Standing
just
24 rounds above the next highest player, this was the biggest push by a single player since the map's release. This time, the game ended in a freeze instead of a down. While a 200 was in sight for the first time in the map's history, Buried's players were catching up to the map's coding limitations, even on console.
Yo, I think this is
While
I think we're
Cyber
gonna
had
hit 200
perfected his
soon.
attentiveness and reaction skills on the map, he was unknowingly starting a new era for Buried, the Error era.
Oh no.
Cyber would now reign over Buried for even
We got to
longer
the title.
than SimStep had, but not necessarily for lack of attempts. In November 2016, a player named Quaz the Gamer would play all the way to 182 before erroring just one round before the record.
Okay, so it seems like 180 seems to be the error.
Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding? Are you fucking kidding? One round from the world record. I get a fucking script error.
Buried was
Oh,
gatekeeping
I feel
itself.
you, dog. One
Sometime in December
one round from the
2016,
world record.
Cyber would beat his own record again, achieving round 186 in a game that lasted
He's like,
about
"Nobody's gonna beat it.
55 to
I'll do it
60
myself."
hours, with the same strategy and the same result, another freeze. Unfortunately, no footage
Oh shit, they're still
exists
playing this.
of this game.
Black Ops
Cyber
3
didn't
is out
save
was
it,
out in
intending to beat
2015.
himself again,
They're still playing
but never
Buried back
managed
when
to
Black
climb
Ops
above
3
these
was had just
long-standing
came out.
games. Instead, two new players would come along out of nowhere and change the landscape of Buried high rounds forever by dueling for the greatest Buried milestone ever achieved, the first 200.
Let's
The first of
freaking
those
go.
players was me. In March of 2017, I would start up a round 115 attempt on my favorite map. I liked Buried because it was excitingly easy, and the aesthetic of the map was unique. I had studied this strategy from players like Cyber and
I would go
Quaz,
back and play
and
Buried
speedrunners like
in
Twitcha,
2023 as well.
where I learned a faster way to play the
think
early
I would.
rounds that previous world record holders hadn't. That is, camping in the Speed Cola tunnel, where there were only 2 spawns. I picked it up pretty quickly, making it all the way past my goal flawlessly to 160.
Why does he have
However, this
anime
is
girls
where
on it?
things took a
Shit's
turn for the
amazing.
worst. I accidentally hit my knife button while trying to fly up to grab a
Oh.
resonator, and the horde took this opportunity to instantly down me. Losing
Ah.
Meal Kick took my paralyzer,
Oh
leaving
no.
me trapped in the
That's
jug
why you don't
hallway
wanna
by one
lose.
zombie, where I
That is the
accepted my
only gun you
fate
don't want to
and
lose.
floated off to that big jug hallway in the sky. Dissatisfied with this ending, and knowing I could make it farther, I would quickly restart the next day for a game that would make it much farther than I could have imagined. Despite taking 3 downs before 115 this game, my stream encouraged me to continue, and I made it past 120, past 150, past 180. The
Dang.
world record was getting closer and closer.
That's
Finally,
dedication.
on
Like
April
never give
2nd,
up.
2017, I tied and then beat the world record. Cyber had finally been dethroned.
Let's
This
freaking
was
go.
obviously a very exciting experience, so I jumped around the jug hallway, not paying attention to when my resonator broke.
No.
Oh, he would have gone
no.
further beyond.
Oh no.
Monkey, 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 monkey.
Oh.
No, the monkey failed. Nah, he doesn't have any room to throw it. Oh, he did.
Get out of here! Why are they moving?
He doesn't have any more.
Please stop!
Yeah,
They won't leave! Oh my god!
he's dead. He's a dead man.
Oh!
The game had gone from 100 to 0 very quickly, but
Yeah.
I still had the record at 187. However, my soon-to-be arch-nemesis was not going to let me keep it for long. 1 month later, Killer Chaz, a British player who already had experience playing for speedrun and co-op records on Buried, set his eyes on my record. He would start up a game with a classic strategy, with one small change that had not been implemented since the days of pre-patch Buried. He built the
Also, the
turbine
quality
in
in
the
these
courthouse
these
instead
videos
of the
are
saloon,
from other
going for
people's
speed and
recordings. It's not
efficiency over
mine.
safety.
It's not my
This would
recording.
pay off, as Chaz was nearly 5 hours faster
Don't
than
worry.
my
Hopefully,
game.
we get to PC gameplay
Chaz would
soon,
end
and
up
the
pushing
quality will
the
get
record
better.
up by 1 round before script erroring on 188.
Yeah.
Of course, I wasn't going to let that stand. Throughout the remainder of May 2017, I restarted
Dang,
over and over,
2017.
revising my own strategy to have the turbine in the courthouse.
That's like 6 years
teaching
ago.
myself how to be more efficient with replacing my buildables. I racked up several failed attempts past 100 over the course of the month.
No, power outage.
While this was definitely demotivating, eventually I got a game that closed in on the world record, despite encountering some of the most unfair downs ever on Buried, in my opinion. On June 2nd, I would shoot past Chaz's 188, pushing all the way to 195 before finally erroring after 50 hours of game time.
50 hours?
There it is! Yo!
Yo, what?
I was actually happy to error because I finally felt like I'd gotten good enough to the point where only the map could hold me back. I hadn't died from fat fingering buttons.
That's
or
actually a really
celebrating
good
too
mentality
early.
right there.
At the
I
time,
like
I
that.
considered this the greatest game of zombies that I personally had ever played. What was more, it seemed that the greatest milestone in the history of Buried was right around the corner, the first 200. Round 200 was viewed as a massive accomplishment in Black Ops 1 and 2 zombies at this time, a sort of numerical difference between the good players and the great players, and at this point the only map that had a round 200 on all of Black Ops 2 was Mob of the Dead. Finally, we would be able to bring Buried up to that level, 4 years after the map had come out. Hot with the 200 fever, I would start another attempt later that summer to beat my own record and achieve what no Buried player had done before. Now that all the major Buried players of the time, me, Chaz, Quaz, and Cyber, the 4 horsemen of Buried as I called us, now that we all had a game that had
They're all
ended in
fighting for
error,
that
we
world
realized we
record.
needed to start theorizing ways to avoid the error.
Yeah,
or
see,
at
they're
least
all,
push it back
at least
long
3 out of
enough for
4 of
one
them are
us
in
to
180,
achieve round
180 something.
200. But on console, modding and testing was extremely limited, so really we could only guess and run trial and error in full games as to what was causing the game to crash at around the same point for each of us.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't think it was necessarily based on time, as our times varied widely, which pointed more to something we were doing over the course of the game and the strategy. The main theory was that shooting the paralyzer too much at the zombies was causing some kind of script overflow, and so
Okay.
players had been trying to limit their usage of this wonder weapon to slow the zombies. This was theorized because players usually erred while holding the zombies back while they broke the turbine. Another theory was that the witches spawning caused some kind of lingering variable that eventually crashed the game. So, what did we do? In early August of 2017, Chaz would start a game operating on these theories, and I would start a game just days after him to prepare to defend my record. Our plan was to use the paralyzer as little as possible, and we would leave the witch's house closed for
All
the
game?
entire game.
Oh, yeah, so they never
This meant that
spawn.
neither of us could get stamina or pack-a-punch, and we would be limited to 3 downs, as we wouldn't be able to get free perks from the witches. As the 2 most accomplished players on the map, we decided that, if the theory worked, we would try to hit 200 at the same time, so that we could both say we had the first 200 on Buried. We managed to play even faster than before with new strategy optimizations, such as leaving the turbine with the zombies as soon as they latched on to break it, rather than staying with them until they broke it. The games went beautifully until the 190s. Then they would suddenly end in tragedy.
More errors?
Same thing that happened for my 154 down, but it was like I started the round with a resonator that had
Oh no, he's trapped. No. Oh my god, he's destroying his place.
Chaz would choke on 192 in
Yeah.
the courthouse, and while I would succeed at beating my own record, I would error the very next round on 196. 10 minutes in to a 40-minute round.
But he did it 2 hours earlier. He did it 2 hours faster than his last record, though.
Oh my god.
He did it 2 hours earlier. Faster, should I say. He did it 2 hours faster.
Well, actually, it doesn't suck because I got the record again. But I already had the fucking record. Oh my god, dude. I hardly even paralyzed him for a second.
Our theories had proven almost completely useless. Disappointed and burnt out from grinding 8 to 10 hour days on Buried over and over, the drive that had come so close to pushing Buried to the 200 would fizzle out for the remainder of the year. It didn't help when, in January of 2018, Chaz would play a game flawlessly to 194, only to error 2 rounds before the record.
Oh no, I just
Oh.
fucking errored. What?
The 4 horsemen of Buried were demotivated.
And he did it even, I think,
and
even
out of
faster than
answers,
than
and the chances of
than
achieving
him.
200 anytime soon seemed to be getting smaller and smaller. What we needed was a major breakthrough. Buried lay dormant until the summer rolled back around, except for a half-hearted attempt here and there. On May
Wow.
30th, 2018, a new player named Hayes Electro, who was really only playing Buried for fun, would tie the record at 196, also erroring.
Gets world record. He was only doing it for fun, bro. Only for fun. These mother.
This strong
Only
game
for
would
fun.
revitalize attempts for the record.
Oh my god.
Plus, Chaz had been sitting on another theory for prolonging the error. That instead of being
Guess
based
world
on
record.
paralyzer
It was fun.
usage,
I'll
the
I'll go
error
to
was
beat another
based on
record
the
for
number of
fun.
buildables the player used over the course of the game. Eventually, in August of 2018, exactly 1 year after the first time we'd raced to 200 with an error theory, we would both start up games at the same time once again, and these games would change Buried forever. If Chaz's theory was correct, then to use less buildables at a time, we would simply have to use more resonators before replacing the turbine each time. This was the first implementation of what is now known as stretching turbines. Instead of
Stretching.
replacing the turbine after the normal amount of 5 resonators, when the turbine would begin to stutter, we played long chunks of rounds where we would use 6 resonators per turbine. This was a more dangerous strategy, as there were long periods
Yeah.
of time where the turbine would be shut off, and players would have to stall the zombies. This gave the zombies much more opportunity to swarm the player, or for them to get behind
That
the resonator
sounds
while it wasn't blasting.
very dangerous in the higher
because
rounds,
players
past
had to
round
pay
100.
even more attention. As 2 of the most experienced players on the map, with literally hundreds of hours of high round experience each, there was hardly anyone better than Chaz and I to put this into practice. The 2 of us kept pace with each other, renewing our year-old plan to hit 200 at the exact same time. Despite varying between 5 to 6 resonators per turbine on this new version of the strategy, this game became my highest flawless round ever, as I didn't take my first down until 161. Both of us were playing incredibly well, and as we both passed 196, there was major hope that this was the answer for the 200. Surely nothing would go wrong in those last 4 rounds. The first player out was me. On round 198,
Oh.
less than an hour away from my goal, I errored again. Chaz had fallen behind due to his personal life during the week, so while this was record, it would only last 2 days before he would catch up. He hit 198, then 199, and then the impossible happened.
200? 199?
We're literally seconds away.
No way, no way, no way. If he errors.
This is it. We made it. We made
Yeah.
it. We made it.
Yeah.
Alright, my spam's ready.
Fucking yes.
Yeah. Okay, he did it. 200. Let's freaking go. Someone's typing in the chat error or something like that.
Oh, it feels so good.
Oh man. How long do you think that'll last? A few days, bro? He's probably just gonna
We
keep
did it,
200
we
for a
did
few
it.
days.
We beat Barry, dude. Oh god.
5 years and 1 month after Buried's release, the
5
first 200
years.
ever had finally
It
been
took
achieved.
5 years.
Killer Chaz was the one who had made it happen. See, Chaz had stretched 6 resonators per turbine for the entire game up until 190, and this had pushed back the error just enough for him to secure the 200. He went on to error on 201, solidifying his game as the best game of Buried played so far. The quest for 200 was finally over. For the first time, players had made concrete progress on figuring out the error. So, what did I do? I restarted, of course. Now I was playing not only for my own 200, owing it to myself after so many attempts, but I had to play even more efficiently than Chaz had. So I decided to use 7 resonators per turbine instead of 6.
How do you even do that?
After 7, each turbine would become extremely inefficient, so it seemed like the perfect number. Still, I was worried something would go wrong and the error would cut me down yet again. After fighting through several failed attempts, October 2018 would see me finally get a game going, and this game went beautifully. My times were faster, my downs were less, and I was playing out of my mind, doing 7 resonators every single turbine. And it worked. There's no audio of it because my mic was off at the time, but I literally screamed when I got 200. I think that's a pretty valid reaction. I nearly ended up dying on 201, but my down recovery was on point, and on October 12th, 2018,
He beat it?
I hit round 202.
He beat the
Then I went to go
record.
play Black Ops 4 Zombies, because that happened to be the same day that it came out. This gave me some time to
Dang.
step back and think about how I should continue the game.
It was what,
I was
2016?
afraid that I was
No.
about to error if I used any more resonators, so I decided to switch my strategy up to using a rather unoptimized trample steam route. I played this for about 30 minutes into 202, before my Xbox decided that it didn't like
He's still
massive
playing
amounts
Xbox?
of paralyzed zombie bodies ragdolling on the screen from the trample steam, and froze. In hindsight, I think I had
Wow.
at least a couple more rounds in this game and could have potentially gotten 210 plus. But at the time, despite our new discovery of stretched turbines, it was still very murky as to how many extra rounds this gave you. I still consider this my favorite Buried game I've ever played, and probably my best too. And it was a record that would not
Gabriel
soon
drop
be
out.
beaten. At this point, the end of 2018, the monster that was Buried had been defeated. Chaz and I could finally take a breather. Now that 200 had been accomplished, and the map's 2 top players had just managed to scrape by before erroring, Buried was virtually seen as being maxed out, and it probably would have
Until?
stayed that way for a while, had not the entire scene of Black Ops 2 Zombies changed in 2019. At this point, Black Ops 2 Zombies was experiencing a gradual shift from console to a version of the game on PC called Redacted. Redacted was an offline mod for BO2 that had come out several years earlier, but was
Oh,
only just
yeah.
now gaining popularity with the high-round players. Not only could players finally play on PC without fear of getting disconnected mid-game, but Redacted also gave players the ability to put patches in the game, meaning that they could fix the round 159 trap issue that had stopped Spoonie's game years earlier, and bring
Oh, that's right. I keep forgetting they have to be playing console because the PC version doesn't allow traps to kill zombies. Okay. That's why they were still playing console back in 2018 and stuff like that. Okay. Okay, but Redacted fixed that, so now, as you can see, the quality of the video has gotten better because they're playing on PC. So now we should be able to see better quality videos and probably even go beyond 200. Still got 20 minutes in the video, so yeah. Yeah, they're definitely
PC
past
back up to
200.
the same level as console. World records such as Stealth McFilthy's 228 on Mob on Redacted in December of 2018 forced players to decide whether this PC mod should be considered for the official leaderboards.
Yeah.
Pretty soon, buried
Yeah, there was a
games would
lot of
start
controversy
being played
about
on
that.
Redacted,
Whether they should
which revealed
allow
something
that
completely
mod, I
unexpected
guess you
about
can
the
say.
map. On July 14th, 2019,
Spoiler
an
alert, they
Austrian
did.
player named Kajaya would one-up my record on PC, reaching round 203 before his game crashed while paused overnight. The strange thing about this game, Kajaya had done 5 resonators per turbine the entire time.
So
The
it's
same amount
fixed.
that had stopped Chaz and I in the 190s on console.
You could say it fixed
And
it
Kajaya
in a
hadn't
way.
even finished his game properly. It had crashed due to totally unrelated reasons. Something strange was going on, and it didn't stop there. A month later, Italian Black Ops 3 player O Jumpy would also try his luck on the redacted version of the map. On August 18th, 2019, he would start up a laid-back 5 resonator game just like Kajaya. What he probably didn't know was that his game would show the real difference between PC and console buried. Despite the fact that he was only doing 5 resonators per turbine, Jumpy skyrocketed past the record all
Oh
the way
my
to around
God.
220 before he finally erred. Not only that, but he did it flawlessly, faster than any other buried game played before,
Whoa.
and he didn't even have to throw a single monkey bomb. This game threw Buried into chaos.
Bro, the French are
and
built
controversy.
different.
It was now clear that console Buried and PC Buried were nowhere even close to being on the same playing field.
Yeah, that's
While at first it was
That's
believed that the error
insane.
didn't even exist on PC, now it seems
61
that it did
hours.
exist. But
Bro,
hardware differences between console
he got
and PC
roughly
made it
about
happen much
close
later.
to 30 more rounds and like
Jumpy's
10
record
more.
was simply impossible
Roughly
to
about
beat
10
on
hours.
console, and it wasn't the only one.
That's
With more
incredibly
players
fast.
migrating to Redacted, differences on other maps were found that pointed more and more toward PC being vastly better than console to play on. On Xbox, Mob of the Dead experienced a series of unexplainable game-ending errors called hunk errors that simply didn't exist on PC. Plus, field of view and FPS were much more dynamic on PC, allowing players to play better. Not only this, but permaperks were also readily available, whereas on console you had to be online and risk disconnection to play with permaperks. Some of these were particularly helpful for buried high rounds. The PhD permaperk, which gave the player the ability to kill zombies in the early game by dolphin diving, the Jug permaperk, which let the player take extra hits, and the Tombstone permaperk, which gave back every perk except Quick Revive instantly after a player downed. Not to mention, PC had the ability to use custom textures. With all these unfair advantages, the community began to consider splitting the leaderboards
Okay, I want that
between
mod
console
now.
and
I want that
PC.
mod.
However, even this
If I want to
idea
be playing
was
this map, I'm going to be
controversial.
playing with that mod.
After all, Black Ops 1 maps
Oh
were
my
virtually all
God.
played exclusively on PC at this point, due to the significant advantages of no frame lag and less errors, and those players hadn't split their boards. So, despite all the confusion, guess
taking
who
too
would
much
start up
memory, that's
another
why.
game a year after his last to pick up the pieces? Was it A, Wonderful, B, Wonderful, or C, all of the above? That's right,
I don't know.
on January 7th,
A and B look
2020,
like,
at the start of the
pretty
new
good choices.
year, I would set out to see how far you could get on PC with the same strat I had used to one-up Chaz's record on console, 7 resonators per turbine. I figured that even if the boards were going to be split between PC and console, I should go for the record on PC so there really would be no debate as to who was the king of buried. Despite the fact that all I had to play on was a gaming laptop, and I had performance issues throughout the game, sometimes very intense performance issues, I managed to become the first person to have 2 200s on buried, pass Jumpy's record, and make it farther than I think most people predicted. Since my 202 had been cut short by a freeze, there really was no telling how far I would go on 7 res.
Oh
And
shit,
as
he beat the
rounds
record?
stretched on, a whole new goal came to mind. One
222.
even more impressive than the first 200. What if round 255 was possible on Buried? 255 is the max round that is even possible on Black Ops 2 and 3. Because of how the game is coded, the round number doesn't even go up after that.
It just goes
And while
back
it
to
had been
1
reached
after that.
hundreds of times on BO3 and become a staple of that game, it had never been reached on BO2. In fact, it wouldn't even be possible on any map other than Buried.
Really? Not even
However,
Origins?
255 wouldn't be achieved so easily. As I wondered whether I would ever error in the 220s, the game eventually answered that question for me on round 233.
Oh no! Error!
Oh,
Error!
but he beat
It
it.
froze! It froze!
He beat it though. Oh my god,
And
he
I
beat
am
it by
being
over
completely honest and
over
humble when I
almost
say that this
20
record would
hours
become one
more.
of the most unbeatable in Black Ops 2's history. My 233 would remain
233.
uncontested for the rest of 2020.
That was
But
when the
at the end of
pandemic
the
happened.
year, some of my greatest competition would be on the rise. Two
Oh, you
French
know,
players
yeah,
named
you know people are gonna be
Blasters
going for it
and
now.
Thysa.
I mean, there's a pandemic
Blasters was
happening
an
at this
up-and-coming
point.
player who had just
People are
started
staying
going
at
for
home,
records in
gaming.
2020, and already had a lot accomplished, including the Nuketown co-op record of 90 and around 210 on Buried No Power using only the trample steam. Thysa had been playing Buried for years but was now inspired to go for the record. But at this point, the problem facing players was that a new strategy needed to be invented to avoid the error for longer than I had. I had used the only solution we knew about, stretching turbines, so Blasters and Thysa tried to optimize their playstyle more than me. It was time for more trial and error, and none of these went as expected. In May 2021, Thysa played a game with 9 resonators per turbine instead of
9?
7 to round 223, and errored. The turbine will last up to 9 to 10 resonators, but after 7 it will only blast once and then turn off for longer, making it even more dangerous for the player than normal stretching. In theory,
This
this
would
should
take
have
longer
given
then.
Thysa a lot more rounds, but he erred 10 rounds earlier. Fast forward to August 2021, and Blasters would make it all the way to 232, 2 minutes from tying the record, before
Dang.
erroring with the same strategy of 9 to 10 res. In October, Thysa would err on 226, and again on 231. Thysa's 231 employed a new strategy he had invented to get quick revive guaranteed from the witches every time after a down. This was done by throwing down a time bomb before killing the witch, taking the perk, and if it wasn't quick revive, reversing time, recycling the time bomb, and trying again. However, too many time bomb uses could have caused his error here, because the error message pointed to a file called zm_equipment. Thysa errored again on 222 in December. No matter how many resonators players stretched, or whether they used the Mark II only until 70+, no one could touch my 233. It was time to try something new. For a while, a theory had been floating around that because the error was probably limited to how many turbines a player used over the course of the game, using the trample steam for part of the game would give players enough leeway to beat the record. However, it was
Okay,
very
that's
difficult
smart,
to
I
find a
guess.
strategy that was fast, safe, and used the trample steam in the saloon, since the other 2 workbenches were occupied and the church workbench had horrible spawns. After a lot of strat testing, a strategy was finally found that met all the criteria, called fittingly Saloon Trample. In February of 2022, Blasters played this strategy to round 160, an incredible feat considering the strategy was so new. 160 was the estimated round that you would have to use the trample steam to avoid the error until 255, but also to reach 255 before hitting Buried's predicted reset time of 115 hours. Blasters then moved to the jug hallway and played the rest of his game flawlessly, only to error on 220. His
So it
error
wasn't
message
that
indicated
then.
that the error was because of Vulture Aid, Buried's unique perk, but Blasters had never actually used Vulture Aid in his game. He had only gotten it when using time bombs to force quick revive. This determined that even if you got Vulture Aid just once, whatever caused Vulture to error stayed in the game regardless of whether you got rid of the perk or not. In my 233, I had gotten lucky enough to never get Vulture, which meant that from now on, players would be taking a huge risk picking up any extra perks from the witches.
So
But
it was
despite
Vulture
these
Aid then?
setbacks across the board, neither
Like,
player
for sure.
would give up. After failing on 220 plus 5
Maybe
times,
it might just be a
on
theory.
March 6th, 2022, Thysa would finally combine enough theories and get lucky enough to achieve 233
Oh.
before erroring on the same round. He had switched between Trample Steam and Resonator until 100 and done 9 to 10 Resonators the rest of the game, yet still got the same result as I did. Even so, my record had finally been matched after 2 years and 1 month, making it the longest untouched record in
Wait.
Buried history.
2
This
years?
was also the first time Buried had ever had a joint record.
This was
And
I thought this
even
was
more
taking
interesting
place like within a few
considering how
months of each other.
differently Thysa and I had played. After this, the dust would settle on Buried for a while. In May, Thysa would play a no-perk game to 221 in which he, you guessed it, also
No
erred.
perks.
But this game made no progress on error knowledge, save for
Yeah.
the fact that Thysa was the first person to error while using the Trample Steam in this run. But in September 2022, a run would be played that would bring everyone back to Buried. On September 23rd, a Spanish player named Okla would achieve round 234 on Buried.
Oh shit, he beat the
However, this
record.
game was extremely controversial.
Why?
To understand why, let me explain another technical nuance of zombies. On every COD Zombies map before Black Ops 4, after being on for 25 days, the game will crash in most cases. And in the best scenario, the game will black screen for another 25 days before continuing. Long story short, this is because the game hits the max amount of milliseconds it can be running, and overflows into the negatives. Oakley used an external program called Cheat Engine to freeze the game while he was paused, so this would never happen. Using modding programs like this is generally frowned upon for world record runs, because of the sheer amount of gameplay elements you can change with them.
Yeah.
So although Okla played a fantastic game in full, using Trample Steam after 230 until his death on 234, his game is not considered by most as the record. I'm sorry, Okla.
I can
However,
see
Thysa
that.
and
I mean,
Blasters
everyone's
quickly set out
playing
to
by
eliminate the
certain
controversy
rules,
by beating Okla's game anyway.
and when you mess with those
Blasters, who
rules,
was already in a
it's,
game at the time,
you can guarantee
played
not
the
many
same
people are
way
gonna
to
like it.
229, only to have his game end to a power outage on September 28th. Thysa would attempt again a month later, with the same intention of switching to Trample Steam on 230, but he errored on 230 right before he was going to switch. With Thysa burnt out
I don't know
on
what he's
attempts,
saying, but
and with him
I
having
can-
the
I can-
joint
I can
record
pretty much
anyway,
guess what
it
he
was
is
up to Blasters
saying.
to beat the unbeatable record. Blasters had racked up a considerable amount of records across BO2 at this point, including Bus Depot and Die Rise Solo, and Farm, Transit, and Town Co-op. In the beginning of 2023, he would set his eyes back on Buried, and by January 11th, he would play one of the best Buried games ever. Not only did he only take one down this game on 232, he was 3 hours faster to 233 than Thysa, and 6 hours faster than me. But unbelievably, he would also error on 233, even though he had been doing Saloon Trample for 8 rounds. Buried is now a 3-way tie.
Thing
which
is, the
hasn't happened
resonator.
with a BO1 or
It's the
2
paralyzer.
solo zombie record since 2018 with Derice. And this is where Buried remains.
What?
Despite the multitude of theories and the progress in figuring out the side errors,
So he's
that
kept the record
infiltrate,
for this
the
long?
true cause of the Buried error is still a mystery. So where do we go from here? Well, research and testing hasn't stopped on the Buried error. Players like Issues, who had a major part in figuring out the cause of the Die Rise elevator error, have been testing new strats in Saloon with the couch open, as the only difference between Okla's game and Thysa and Blaster's games is that Okla had the couch open, and Okla didn't error. So what round is theoretically possible on Buried? That's a pretty impossible question, but with current knowledge, apparently 233. While the error does seem to hinge somewhat on luck, we need a breakthrough new strategy to beat it by a significant amount. We've found ways to prolong it before, which would indicate that there are more ways to prolong it that we just haven't found yet. Sure, this is frustrating, but the interesting aspect of the error is that it forces the player to attempt and master new and often much weirder and more difficult strategies in order to avoid the error, such as Saloon Strat, Saloon Trample, Power Trample, No Power, French Revolution Strat, Survival Mapping, B23R Strat, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 res, switching perks and areas, playing fast, and playing slow, my personal strong suit. If there was no error, players would just be able to play 5 res until 255, which would make Buried really no different than a map like Revelations or Black Ops 3 Ascension. For this reason, while the Jug Hallway strategy is still the meta, Buried has some of the most strat variation on any map in recent years, and has become a much more competitive map than it was at the beginning of its life. So, while it's clear that Buried is playing the long
Everyone's
game,
ended by
there's hope.
error.
Buried is one of the very few zombies maps where the record is uniquely not based on how fast you play. Most BO1 and BO2 maps are so optimized in 2023 that it would take years for a new player to train their skills enough and get lucky enough to beat the record.
Exception or
But Buried's
no
skill floor is comparatively low, and its record may only be held back by cleverness. Many of the players in this video only started playing because it was their favorite map, and most started learning it years after the map came out. The map, it seems, has only gotten more popular for high rounds as the years have gone on. And this brings me to my final point, that this video is my own tribute to Buried. Had I quit on 115 that day in 2017, had I not kept reattempting, had I not gotten hooked on defending my record on the map, this YouTube channel would not look like this, and you would be watching a completely different video. Playing and brainstorming the map was how I met some of my best friends, and a lot of the people from the community I still talk to today. I don't play Buried as much these days, and the days of sitting like a goblin on my bed and racing through hours and hours a day are long gone. But how can I leave that underground town behind? So let me backtrack and answer one of the questions I get asked the most often. What round is possible on Buried? My response to that has varied a lot over the years, but look at it like this. The record has been going up for 10 years.
Yeah.
How could 255 not be possible, even if it takes years more?
I mean, just look at the
It's fair game
insane,
for
like,
anyone, even you
how far
watching
they've
this
came
video.
from erroring
That's
in
why I've included
155.
a range of resources
Erroring in
about the map
120.
in the description.
Now they're
including my
erroring in
tutorial on how to play the map
233.
for high rounds, my very detailed, accurate leaderboards, and more information on the history of these records, which I want to give a huge thanks to Becca for helping me to find and put together. So now that we've looked back, it's time to look
Look at the
forward.
movement.
Buried is waiting to be maxed out. I'm wonderful, and this has been the complete world record history of Buried. Thanks for watching.
Dang. I'm telling you, man. They figured out what was happening back in 2015. What was airing. They sort of figured it out. They got through it. They got to 200. They figured out what was airing at 203. They got to 220. They figured out what was airing it. Well, what was causing. They're not really figuring it out what's causing the error, but they're just overcoming it forcefully by not doing certain things that they were doing before. Alright. So, yeah, this year. Okay, so he hit 233 this year and the year before. Okay. And then 2020, so it's been 3 years and no one knows what's causing the 233 error. Now they know it has something to do with, like, I guess the wonder weapon. Maybe they don't know exactly what it is, but I mean, just look at this. They could barely get to 100 before, then they could barely get to 200, and just look. In all those years, it took 5 years for anyone to get to 200. 5 years. So we got another 2 years, boys. We got another 2 years before we might possibly get to 255. That's possible. It might just be stuck at 233, honestly, with how old the game is. I think it's just going to be stuck there. But anything can happen. It's 2023. Anything can happen. It's 2024 coming up. Anything can happen. So yeah, comment down below if you guys knew anything from this video of those world records. And yeah, don't just like and subscribe for more of these amazing videos. And anyways, I'll see you guys next time on whatever other video I post. Alright, see ya.